Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. Delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. Now, I want to let's do a little bit of storytelling here, but let me just set this up for you. I'm on radio. My job is to keep you entertained. It's not to save the world. It's not to change your mind. It's not to advocate for legislation. My job is to keep you company, to keep you entertained. And that is my primary job on radio. But I view my job as part of keeping you entertained and telling you stories and painting broader pictures for you what's going on in the world. My job is actually to tell you the truth, to tell you the news of the day. Right now, missiles are in the air from Iran. Iran's supreme leader announced that the battle begins. That's what he's telling Israel today, that today is really Iran striking back. Now that they've got their ducks in a row after the decapitation of their leadership, they intend to fight aggressively. Chinese air cargo ships landed last night in Tehran. It is believed that they were sending resupplies of weaponry for Iran to use. That may be what's happening right now. We will see. But while that is happening, there is growing discontent within parts of MAGA over the issue of Donald Trump and his engagement in the situation of the Middle East and Israel and Iraq and what exactly is going on and who exactly is in charge and what exactly is the mission. There's a lot of anger. Tucker Carlson played gotcha with Ted Cruz last night. Listen to part of this.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population at all. No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple? How many people live in Iran? 92 million. Okay. Yeah. How could you not know that? I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
It was Tucker Carlson intended it to be an ICDE question. He intended it to be a gotcha question. It's what members of the left-wing media do. Go back to the year 2000. That was George W. Bush versus Al Gore. George W. Bush versus Al Gore in 2000. In one of the presidential debates, they asked George W. Bush who the president of Pakistan was. And he didn't know the answer. And then they asked him the president of Swaziland. And I think I think it was him. And he pointed out it's actually a king, but he didn't know the name of the person. The reporter didn't know it was a king. But it was a gotcha question. They never asked Al Gore. They didn't want to ask Al Gore. They wanted to ask George W. Bush because it was a discrediting question. You want to be a world leader and you don't know the names of all the world leaders of the 190 plus countries on planet Earth? Same thing here. Someone sent out a cartoon this morning of Tucker Carlson asking Luke Skywalker, what's the population of the Death Star? It's kind of the same way, folks. It's a discrediting question. Oh, you don't know anything about the country. No, here's what you need to know. You don't need to know how many people live in Iran. The question is, do you want Iran to have a nuclear weapon? But Tucker Carlson is in charge of a vanity project of Tucker Carlson and others of the progressive right to stop Donald Trump from doing what Donald Trump is doing. And what it comes down to is a tale as old as time, to quote Beauty and the Beast. Go back to Adam and Eve, the Tower of Babel, Frankenstein, Pinocchio, so much more. Stories of the creature deciding that it is the creator. If you go to Genesis 1, there's a word used when God says God created the heavens and the earth, and God created the animals, and God created the plants, and God created the heavens, and God created man. It's bara. God baras. And it is a word that only applies to God. God divinely creates. He creates in a way that we can't create. So when the people decided to build the Tower of Babel, the word use is not bara. And occasionally in literature themes, in literary themes, in religion and stuff, you have stories of the created being deciding it's actually God now. And that's what's happening here with Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson and Jack Posobiec and Candace Owens and the other very loud voices who do not want to engage with Iran is they think they created Donald Trump, as opposed to Donald Trump really created them, rebuilt platforms for them, made them into something. Steve Bannon rode Donald Trump's coattails. Tucker Carlson has ridden Donald Trump's coattails. These others have ridden Donald Trump's coattails, but they've decided that they're actually the power behind the throne. And one of the things that they have concocted is a mythology and a narrative. And let me give you this. If you read my piece this morning, you know where I'm going, and that is the Iraq War and Afghanistan. There's a reason that Vietnam lingers in the minds of the boomer class in this country. In Vietnam, 358,279 American men were killed or wounded, 58,279 killed, and 300,000 wounded. And young men grew up, and as they got closer to the age of 18, they lived in fear of getting drafted and going to Vietnam. Iraq and Afghanistan had no draft. In fact, in the grand scheme of things, very few Americans were impacted personally by the battle in Iraq and Afghanistan. 58,279 people died in Vietnam. 6,600 died combined in Iraq and Afghanistan. 2,461 in Afghanistan, just over 4,200 in Iraq. Massively different from Vietnam. 300,000 people were wounded in Vietnam. 20,000 were wounded in Afghanistan. Massive, massive disparity. But for some, it became a defining thing for them. Tucker Carlson, of course, felt like he was lied to and played over weapons of mass destruction. Talked to my friends in the military who've been in Syria. They say, we know where Iraq's weapons of mass destruction went. They went to Syria. That's what the Syrians have been using on their people the last couple of decades. It's not that Iraq didn't have weapons of mass destruction. It's that they got them out of the country before we invaded, so we couldn't find them. Whether you believe that or not, it is a mythology to think that Iraq and Afghanistan are this country's new Vietnam, because we were actually winning until Joe Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan. Very few Americans, we're down to like single digits beneath 5 over the last number of years, were dying in Afghanistan, yet 2,000 Afghanis a year were dying because we had transitioned the country. It's not the same thing, but these people built up the mythology and they built up the narrative that we can't have a police, we can't police the world. There can be no more forever wars. This wasn't a forever war. Very few Americans were getting killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. Very few total did compared to Vietnam. It wasn't a forever war. It was our political leadership that made some terrible mistakes over there. They could have been much better mistakes. We could have had the surge earlier. We could have done things differently. The troops themselves were not at fault. But this mythology that's come out of it has come as well from a side note of anti-Semitism. Why? Because it was Paul Wolfowitz and people like that who wanted to engage, and they were Jews. And so these people built up a mythology of America can't be the world's policeman. We can't have forever wars. Iraq and Afghanistan are the new Vietnam. Anytime you go to the Middle East, it becomes another Vietnam. We've got to stay out of the Middle East. Everything in the Middle East is a forever war, and there can be no more wars, and we can't do nation building. Nobody's proposing nation building. In fact, what does Donald Trump himself say? What does Trump say? This is Donald Trump this morning on the White House lawn.
Some of the people in the base don't want a long-term war. They're afraid that we're going to get into a long-term war. Which is for a long-term war. We're looking. I only want one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Right. That's it. I'm not looking long-term, short-term. And I've been saying that for 20 years. I've been saying it as a civilian who got a lot of publicity. People would cover it. Very simply, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's not a question of anything else. And if you did, you wouldn't have much of a country, because they would use it on us and they'd use it on other people, and they'd be a terror all over the world.
He doesn't want a long-term war. He just wants them not to have a nuclear weapon. That's it. No nuclear weapon. He's not looking for nation building. But these people are, we're nation building. We're nation building. Tulsi Gabbard apparently has been releasing some cryptic videos on social media the president saw. There's a big story in Politico. The president is tired of Tulsi Gabbard, doesn't think she adds anything to the conversation, and believes she's been disloyal for these little cryptic suggestions on social media that the neocon warmongers are influencing the president. In other words, the Jews. The president's had enough of it. He's had enough of Tucker Carlson, called him Kooky Tucker, Kooky Carlson. Says he needs a TV show so people can hear what he thinks. Here's what's going on here. Tulsi Gabbard, Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, and the rest of them, they think they created Donald Trump, and Donald Trump recognizes he made them. Carlson would be no one but for Donald Trump. Donald Trump was his own man when he rode that escalator and declared his presidency in 2015. And right now, the division in MAGA is a division between the creator and the people who thought they created the creator. This is a Tower of Babel moment, dividing MAGA between the people who are authentically supporters of Donald Trump and the people who are supporters of their own agenda and treated Donald Trump as if he was the totem of their agenda. And their agenda was simply this, that America should retreat from the world. They have built up a mythology that people believe about Iraq and Afghanistan to convince people we should not be on the world stage. They do not want to be leaders of the world. They want to hand the world over to China and Russia. And they understand that once China and Russia are in control, the return on investment of getting America back in a leadership position will be too great that we'll give up. They want no American leadership in the world. They believe the idea of America running the world is a bad thing. They believe that the Western world being dominated by the United States is a bad thing. They hate American leadership in the world. And they believed they found a kindred spirit in Donald Trump. They believed they could elevate him. Donald Trump's always been pro-America. Donald Trump wants to lead the world. Donald Trump recognizes America's leadership in the world. Donald Trump has been very consistent, as he said for 20 years, that it would be bad for America if Iran had a nuclear weapon because Iran is pledged to destroy the United States of America and Israel. Iran believes that it can bring about the apocalypse with a nuclear weapon, which it believes is a rational thing to do because the apocalypse is good for it. Iran believes if it can bring about the apocalypse, it wins. Now, I've read to the end of the Bible. I know that's not true, but the Iranians are convinced it is. So all of these people believe that Donald Trump was a totem for their ideas, and it turns out he's his own man with his own ideas. And they're angry about it. They don't like it. So now they're seeking to discredit his agenda. And inside the administration, there are people working to sabotage Donald Trump's efforts right now because they too are convinced American leadership in the world is a bad thing. And Trump has had enough of it. And so we're seeing this. And you know, the bottom line here, this is the sad thing, is that these people, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Candace Owens of the world, they would rather Iran get a nuclear weapon than for their ideological opponents, the neocons, to be right. They would rather Iran get a nuclear weapon than for them to be seen as not controlling Donald Trump because they've monetized. You know, all those stories about how often Donald Trump talks to Tucker Carlson, those leaks don't come from Donald Trump. They come from Tucker Carlson. All the people who go to Mar-a-Lago and they put it on their Instagram feed that they were there, they've got pictures of themselves with the president, they're seeding the idea that they are influential, that they're in the president's ear, that they can shape public opinion. And suddenly they're being exposed as impotent, as Donald Trump doesn't actually need them. Donald Trump doesn't need them. He's term limited. He's got a legacy to build now. And if Iran got a nuclear weapon, that would be a devastating end to Donald Trump's legacy. And he understands that. It's sad that these people are more interested in making sure their ideological opponents lose an argument than making sure Iran doesn't get a weapon of mass destruction. And so they will turn on Donald Trump now because he's not giving them what they want, which is victory in an argument that if they won would reduce American influence in the world and raise up an army of our enemies against us. And they're fine with that because it gives them more clout long term. Donald Trump asserting himself as the leader of MAGA undermines their efforts. They convinced themselves they were pulling the strings. And it turns out they were the puppet all along. And they don't like to realize that it's Donald Trump who's been pulling the strings, not them.